Do you want to deploy Salesforce changes faster with fewer bugs and happier users? Of course you do. And learning about the DevOps Center is the first step to a smoother Salesforce development process. Hi, I'm Ben McCarthy, founder of SalesforceBen.com, and our mission is to help you advance your Salesforce career. Check out our YouTube channel below and also our extensive resources on SalesforceBen.com. Welcome to video 2 in our Salesforce DevOps Center series, produced in collaboration with Prodly, a leading Salesforce DevOps tool that integrates with the DevOps Center. In video 1, we discussed what Salesforce DevOps Center is and why Salesforce released it. In this video, we'll explain how to get started using DevOps Center with a full tutorial. But first, why is it so important to set up DevOps Center properly? Software developers have been using DevOps best practices for years to streamline their development process. However, Salesforce is primarily a clicks, not code platform that allows admins and citizen developers to make changes without knowing how to code. So there really haven't been the tools for declarative developers to implement DevOps in Salesforce. Because of this, admins and developers typically haven't been able to work together properly. With the release of the DevOps Center, Salesforce has changed the game. DevOps Center brings DevOps best practices to Salesforce, giving development teams an improved experience around change management, no matter whether they use code or clicks. In short, DevOps Center is basically a tool to accomplish faster, higher quality metadata releases. Now, without further ado, let's move over to David Clark, VP of Product at Prodly, who is going to show us how to set up the DevOps Center.
Before you install the DevOps package into your org, you're going to define a release process and a pipeline and prepare your sandboxes. Then once you've installed DevOps Center, you can set up your first projects and connect to a source control like GitHub. Let's start with defining a release pipeline. What do I mean by that? Well, release pipeline defines a sequence of stages from development all the way to production. DevOps Center requires a final release environment and at least one development environment, but it's a best practice that you test the software prior to promoting it production, and that's done in a staging area. But ultimately, it's up to you to define how you'd like to release your software. In DevOps Center, each stage in a release pipeline corresponds to a branch in GitHub, as well as to an environment. And we're going to go into more detail on later in this video. If you see this slide, you'll see a bunch of different environments. The reason for that is every developer, whether they're configuring new products or clicking around to update page layouts or writing some code, you're going to want to give them each their own environment so that they don't overwrite each other's work. This table shows what kind of environments to use for each stage of the release process. You're going to start work in an environment, and you're going to need source tracking enabled. And also note that you can use source tracking only in Developer and Developer Pro and Scratch orgs. It's also the best practice to use a full or partial copy or even a developer sandbox for your integration stage, and a full or partial copy for UAT, and a full copy for staging. And these are just various stages that you could have in that development process. And the reason why you want to use those partial or full copy sandboxes is just so you have some production test data as you're going through that final testing process. Okay, now that you've defined your release pipeline, let's move on to the next step, which is making sure that your environments are prepared for DevOps Center. The most important thing to remember when you set up these development environments is that you need to have source tracking enabled. Source tracking is the feature that automatically tracks the changes to your metadata while you're doing your development. And it makes it so that the DevOps Center can track as you're going through the release process what changes have been made, so you don't have to go in and select everything manually. So let's show you how to enable that. First, you're going to log in and go into Setup, and then you're going to go into DevHub, and then choose Enable Source Tracking. Then you're going to refresh any sandboxes as needed. All right, now you've defined your release pipeline and you've prepared your sandboxes. Let's move on to the next step. The next step is installing the package. DevOps Center is managed through a managed package, and it's easily installed through Setup. Just note that it can only be installed in a production org, and it's not supported in sandboxes. Installing the DevOps Center package is easy, and it's installed through the managed package process, and it's not supported in sandboxes. To start the installation process, log into your production environment where you want to manage it and go to Setup. When in Setup, simply search for the term DevOps. And there's a new Setup node here for DevOps Center. And what you're going to do here is toggle the DevOps Enable and Center feature flag and accept the product terms. And then you're going to click on the Install Package link. And this is going to install the package from the App Exchange. It's then going to ask you for which users you want to install this for. You can either select Install for admins or Install for all users. Go ahead and click Install. Make sure to approve third-party access to login.salesforce.com and test.salesforce.com, and you're done. When the package is finished installing, it will give you an email notification upon success. The next step, you're going to go to your users, and you're going to want to enable some different permission sets and make sure they have the right level of license. Anybody who's a product manager, release manager, project manager, they're going to want to have a standard system Salesforce user profile. Next, you're going to go to permission sets and make sure that all users have the appropriate permission sets. You're going to want to give release managers and managers, it's going to give them access to the different projects. And also for those who are going to be logging in and accessing version control, we also have the initialize environment and the name credentials permission sets. So now you've installed DevOps Center. Let's move on to setting up your first project so your team can get to work. So what you're going to want to do is go into GitHub and make sure that you and everybody on your team has a GitHub account. This can be accessed through github.com/join. Once you've signed into GitHub, you're going to want to create a project repository. There's a few different ways you can create this repository. You can do it using the Salesforce DX project structure. If you have an existing GitHub repo, you can add the project JSON file into the root and use that. We'll provide the link. And also you can use a template that Salesforce provides. This will also be available as you go through the sign-in process through the DevOps Center. It'll actually allow you to create one of these repos on the fly. So let's get into it. Next step, we're going to create a connected app to complete the process of setting up and enabling you to create your first project. So what you're going to want to do is go into Setup and look for the App Manager. And under the App Manager, you're going to create a new connected app. You're going to fill out some details like I've done here, calling it DevOps Center. You're going to enter the API name, the email, and the most important thing you're going to want to make sure is that you have the correct start URL as shown here. So before we go into the next step, let's make sure you've created all the environments you need for the project for your release pipeline. So what you can go into your sandbox setup and request new dev boxes or refresh your sandbox, because the next step is going to be to connect those environments to the DevOps Center. So to do that next step, now that we've created the connected app, is you're going to go into your app bar and you're going to just type in DevOps Center. And it's going to open up this project page. This is the home project page. And what you're going to do is click New Project. And on that, it's going to ask you to connect your DevOps Center to GitHub. So you're going to go ahead and click Connect. And as long as you've logged into that GitHub account on the same browser, it'll automatically log you in and let you connect your GitHub account to this project. The next thing is we're going to want to create our first project. So we'll go ahead and click New Project. And we're going to go ahead and give this project a name. And if we already have a repository, we can add that link here in this bottom section, or you can go ahead and create one, as I mentioned earlier, on the fly, and it's going to create the correct file format and structure within this repo. So we'll go ahead and give it a name and click Save. Now that we've saved the project, it's going to pull up this project homepage where it's going to give us the opportunity to decide what is our release environment. This is the final stage of the the development process, and this is typically your production environment. So what you're going to go ahead and do is add those credentials for your production environment here. It's going to redirect you to a login page where you're going to enter your information and connect that environment. After a moment, it'll refresh and show you that your release environment has been connected successfully. And now we're going to connect all of our other environments. So we're going to go ahead and click on that environment tab. And it's going to take us to our pipeline view where we're able to add as many development environments as we need for this project. We'll go ahead and give them environment names. And we're going to go ahead and go through the same process like we did before to log into each of these developer environments, entering the username and credentials. After we've done that for our development environment, we can go through the various stages and associate different environments, say for integration or UAT testing. We're going to go ahead and do the same steps. We're going to log in and connect these environments. Now, if you don't have environments for every stage, that's fine. You define what the pipeline looks like. You can have many stages or just a few. And I'll show you really quickly how you can go ahead after we're done connecting our environments, how to remove these from the environment pipeline process. So as you can see here out of the box, it offers you 4 different steps. If you don't have environments for each one of these stages, you can come up here and you can remove them, and that will remove them from the process. So really quickly, I want to explain what this bundling stage feature is really quick. So what is a work item bundle and why would you want to use it? Well, it's a group of work items that you bundle together and promote at the same time to the next stage. You can think of it as like a release. Using a work item bundle has a few advantages. It lets you pinpoint conflicts early on in that deployment process and enhances the quality of the testing stages and regression testing. It allows you to keep all those changes together to ensure that once you've tested them, that you're moving all the same things together through each stage of the pipeline. The last thing left to do is to activate the pipeline. If the status at the top right says ready to activate, you're all set. If the status is not ready, click on and see what the validations are and go ahead and resolve them. After resolving any errors, click activate and your release pipeline is now ready for use.
Thank you, David. What an amazing introduction on how to set up the Salesforce DevOps Center. In our next video in the series, we're going to discuss how to deploy changes using the DevOps Center. We'll discuss the benefits of deploying using this tool and examine why change sets are now insufficient. We'll also talk a bit more about DevOps deployment philosophy, and finally, show you how to deploy those changes using the DevOps Center. For more information about setting up the DevOps Center, check out the resources in the description and make sure to check out Prodly, a tool that can help you on your Salesforce DevOps journey.